Welcome to Let's Face the Facts. I'm David Almeida, and I'm your host for this rewatch podcast for the classic sitcom, The Facts of Life. I'm an actor in Orlando, Florida, and every week I bring you some of the greatest talent in the Central Florida arts community. Join us as we synopsize, analyze, criticize, and ultimately idolize the show, episode by episode. Well, look who's back. It's another week, another show, and I'm so glad to have you joining me. It's very early in the morning. I'm recording this on my porch on my iPhone because I want to get this done, and I'm really thrilled for you to hear my guest this week. My guest is Cole NeSmith. Cole he's basically Mr. Creative. But not just in a creative way. He's like a leader in creativity. It's amazing. He's not like, everybody I have here, I always am like, oh, they're a performer, an actor, a singer, a funny person. But on top of all that, Cole is an author and a musician and a composer, singer-songwriter, a podcaster. And he's the executive director of Creative City Project, which does Immerse, which is a festival of art that, if it is able to happen this year, it is going to see over 1,000 artists performing in downtown Orlando with 100,000 patrons attending. We talk about it a bit in the interview segment of the show, and I'll let him speak for the project and all the other really cool stuff he does. Now, before we start, I do need to say hello and give a shout out to a new Tutti Frutti, simply known by one name, Denise. Yes, Cher, Madonna. Now there is Denise. Welcome to the family, Denise. Thank you so much for being a patron of the show. If you want to be like Denise, you can support the show through patreon.com/facethefactspod, and you can help defray the expenses of producing this podcast for as little as $1 a month. This week, Cole NeSmith and I watched Season 5, Episode 10, called Store Games, and the original air date was November 30th of 1983. I think we're ready to jump on in. Let's face the facts with Cole NeSmith. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way across town, live via Zoom, a man who is very busy, who is creatively a fountain of a billion different things and ideas and products, and somehow I was able to catch that lightning in a bottle and bring him here today, Mr. Cole NeSmith.
Hello!
Welcome, darling. Good to see
you.
your face.
So good to be here with you.
I have been wanting to get you on the show for some time.
Well, all you had to do was ask.
I've been kind of asking and hinting at it for a while, but I had never gotten around to just like, okay, this week.
And here we are.
Yeah, and Cole, let's face it, during a pandemic, it's a lot harder to say no. So I've been able to get a lot of people that would otherwise be like, just people who tend to be busy, and this stupid shit show would fall to the wayside. So I was saying that you feel like you've been this ever constant presence in the journey of my podcast.
I'm so honored by that.
You don't even realize, because right around the time I was starting to conceive the podcast and put it all together and slowly build it up, that was right at the same time that you started the Entrepreneur podcast.
Oh, yes.
Which is an inspiration for people as a creative outlet, people wanting to make creativity their career, or at least make something creative happen. And I shit you not, Cole, I forget what the particular episode was about, but there was one episode where you kind of said, you also need to just get to doing it. You need to quit fucking around.
Yes. I probably say that every episode.
Yeah. But in this one, it was a particular one where that very week, I had not recorded a show. I didn't have a drop date set, but I had probably changed the font 7 times on my website.
Oh, there is one
And,
episode where I'm like, here are the things that most people focus on that mean absolutely nothing. You just need to get to work. Yeah. So people like spend forever working on their website and figuring out a logo, and ultimately nobody's coming to do your thing or not do your thing because of how your logo looks. It's like, get to work and people are going to start talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And you can change it. And I've changed the format as I've gone along. It's that sense of being a perfectionist and being no, I have to have every duck in a perfect row. Those dominoes have to be lined up with microscopic precision before I knock them down. And after a while, it's just like, fuck, I need to do it.
Right. And we get better as we do.
Yeah.
The perfection happens along the way, not before we start.
Yeah. And perfection is the journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
Or something like that. Yeah.
It's so true. Such wisdom you're spouting here on the facts of life.
Wherever did I learn it?
I don't know.
I learned it from listening to you, Cole.
Oh.
I learned it from you.
Thank you.
We're going to talk a little bit later about all of your creative endeavors and all the things that you do, Mr. Cole. But before we do that, the matter and task at hand is we've got to talk about the facts of life.
What are they?
The TV show, not the real facts of life.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Is that what this podcast is about? Thought we were just going to talk about things that, we think are facts.
We were taught. Oh.
Did you know that rabbits poop twice? That's a fact.
That's a fact.
And did you know that the first time they poop, they eat it? Those little rabbit poop balls that you see are the second time a rabbit poops.
No.
Yeah. So rather than chewing their cud, they actually eat the first round of poop and then poop it out a second time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a moment and pause here for my listeners to throw up a little. Okay, and we're back. Thank you, Cole. Maybe we'll get some more interesting facts out of you.
Great. I'll be
on.
fishing my mind for them so that I can just spout out some random facts of life.
Do it. That would be hilarious. That's awesome. So we have just watched season 5, episode 10. Called Store Games. It was originally broadcast on November 30th of 1983. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of it, do you have a relationship with the show? Have you watched the show in the past?
I have vague memories of this thing existing during my childhood, but it was definitely not something that I was watching.
Okay. That's a thing, and you're significantly younger than I am. You're not. I watched it the first go round, the first broadcast. So, but a lot of people lived with it and grew up with it on Nick at Night when the thing
second time around.
Yeah,
got it.
Exactly. Let me do a little bit of business here. The episode was written by Andy Borowitz. This is his third of 5 episodes that he wrote for the series, and he only worked on the show this one particular season that we're in, season 5. And then he would move on to bigger, better things, including creating The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh.
Who knew?
Fancy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yes. And it was directed by Asad Kalada, and he's the one who directed most of the episodes and then would go on to do most of Who's the Boss. And the title, Store Games. Did you get what they were doing there? Did you see what they did there?
Yeah,
Cole?
I do. Yes. Such tension there.
War Games was the hottest thing that summer. It came out in June of 83. And as I said, this episode broadcast right around Thanksgiving of that same year. And in fact, one could call this an episode ripped from the headlines, Cole.
The Cold War.
Exactly. But the thing was, this was literally when the home computer was a new thing. And this was the rise of hackers and the government realizing we don't have laws in place for people who break into computer systems. We can maybe do, I think some of the charges they did in the early days was wiretapping or some weird thing like that.
Because it was going over the telephone line.
True. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, yes, this is a play on war games, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as the episode goes along.
Well, I'll just say this is a riveting exploration of that current event.
Yeah, thank you. It is. It is so relevant to its time that we watch it now and have no fucking clue what it pertains to anything. So, at the beginning of the show, I always like to put my guest on the spot and ask you, Cole, if you would please give us a 1 to 2 sentence synopsis of the episode we just watched. Like a listing you might see in TV Guide, very rough.
Mrs. G's store is about to shut down because she's lost so much business. And so in order to combat the loss of sales, the girls hack into their competitor's computer to try to win back business.
I give you a slow clap for that, sir.
Thank you.
That was lovely.
I tried to not give everything away.
Yeah, that's the challenge. That's the thing that always trips up everybody who is always like, oh, I want to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because, I'm about to go pretty microscopic into the breakdown of the show. So let us get to it, shall we?
We shall.
The episode starts at the shop at Edna's Edibles. And not much going on there. That is by design. And we have Joe at the table at the front, and Joe is hitting the books. And this is a role that Joe has sort of taken on occasion throughout the series now that we're doing the Edna's Edibles thing. And I love it. I love Joe as the taskmaster, as the basically the store manager, bookkeeper.
Okay, I have to pause you here and ask 2 questions. One,
please.
That accent is not real, is it?
You are not the first person to ask that.
I would imagine.
The answer is no. It is a dialect that the actress is utilizing.
Is that what we call that? Is that a dialect or is that an attempt?
It's so funny because I grew up with this show. It never has bothered me until people point out that it is a little broad and inconsistent. We have Joe yelling at Mrs. Garrett, saying that the business is still losing money and business is slow. I want to point out, this is episode 10 of the season. So they've been open like 2 months. So
and already they're in peril.
Yeah, things, the business is dying versus it's a slow period. Mm-hmm. And, hopefully when you start a business, you have enough capital to get you through a period of time.
Yeah.
Longer than 2 months.
Yeah.
Just saying. Mm-hmm. Just saying. So Joe says that digital cash register that you just ordered, you can't have it. And something else. And she walks Mrs. Garrett back to the house part, the back part of the store, which is where they all live. And Natalie is sitting at a new thing we have not seen before, a table with a home personal computer at it.
And what an epic computer it is.
Do you have any thoughts or feelings?
Oh, the orange CRT monitor that's not positioned on top of the CPU. No. It's like to her right. So they type, but have to look to the right in order to see what it is they're typing. And they do this every time they use it. They do this back and forth where they type a little bit and then they look over at the computer monitor. And then they type a little bit more, and they look at the computer monitor, and little things are happening on the computer monitor. And I cannot believe they're renting that thing for $160 a month.
I know.
Have you done the conversion on this?
I have. $421.27 in 2020 dollars.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, bear in mind, computers were fucking expensive in the 80s. I mean, they were not cheap. They were more, it's like, VCRs. When VCRs started hitting the scene, VCRs were like, $400, $500, $600. They were expensive. But they lasted a while. And so the fact that my first response was that too, is like, fuck, that's expensive. But I was like thinking, but my thing is that it's a business. Why would you rent a computer? But just buy it.
Well, also, you have to ask yourself, is it worth $420 a month? And she says, what does she say? We're using it for bookkeeping and to store their recipes. So to do like their profit and loss, their P&L ledger, and to store their recipes, they're paying $420 a month. $5,000 a year
Yeah, which is now our calculator app and our notes app, basically, that's in our phone.
Or Google Docs.
Or Google Docs, yeah.
For free.
Exactly. And storing the recipes.
Right.
And I will point out, when Mrs. Garrett does come up with the brilliant idea of the cheese puffs, what does she do? She pulls out her damn little card file box. She's a woman pushing 60 in 1983. She's not going to start looking on the computer for her recipes. So, enter Pamela Siegel in the role of Kelly, also known as Pamela Adlon.
Okay, well, let me pause you here and
please
ask you. You've had a lot of guests on here. Is there a lot of lesbian energy in this show? Have you had a lesbian on the show to ask this question?
Oh, you don't have to be a lesbian, Cole, to watch this show and say, holy shit, there is so much overtones, particularly between Joe and Blair. And this isn't much at all. There are other shows where you're like, are they going to start making out? Like, it's pretty crazy. But so talk to me. Why at this point did you bring up the lesbianic stuff? Did something happen in the episode?
Well, I mean, I think this actor who portrays Kelly has a very lesbian energy to her. And I think this show may have actually set a precedent for lesbian hairstyles for the coming decades.
Yes.
And honestly, I don't know what I'm potentially putting myself getting in trouble for. I don't know what I'm allowed to say and what I'm not allowed to say. But
the thing is, all girls wore their hair like that in the 80s. I mean, they did. That was a very common thing. And I know by today's standards, we look at that and we say, oh, baby femdyke. And it's, I hope that term is still politically correct. It probably isn't. But as a gay man, I'm playing my pink card saying I can say that.
I'll let you say all of the words.
You'll let me take the bullet for both of us. But the term they never used, but I think was always in their mind, was tomboy.
Well, so here's another reason I bring this up at this point. I made a note here. So
yes.
she reveals that she's gotten a new job as the paper boy. Mm-hmm. And one of the characters, I think maybe she says it, Kelly says it, is, I've gone straight. And,
yes.
And when she uses that phrase, I just thought to myself, it's like, okay, now we're just talking about it.
Yeah. She was introduced to us as
a criminal.
Yes. As a no good Nick ne'er-do-well, if we want to keep using arcane terms. But the thing is, so the idea that she has a job now, she does say to Joe, I'm going straight. Mm-hmm. She really, that's the other lesbianic thing, is that in the previous episode, we learn that she admires Joe. She looks up to Joe, right. And it's kind of like, oh.
Be my mentor.
Yeah. Rest assured that even though we get to kind of, oh my God, today, they were absolutely not thinking of that at the time. They were not trying to tread any ground or blaze any trails. Joe is, in fact, heterosexual. Joe marries a man before the season ends.
Oh.
Before the series ends, yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yep, and no lesbian woman ever married a man.
Right, exactly. Been covering it up for decades.
The plot purpose that the presence of Kelly in this episode is that she says, so I hear business is really terrible. And the term is, she says, I hear your business is deader than disco.
Yep, I wrote that one down as another
true
kind of antiquated. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But you realize disco died pretty much overnight in 1981. So it's like, that is still very, very
fresh. It's a fresh wound. Too soon.
It is. I'm telling you. And another culture reference that I don't know if you caught. She says, "I'm a paper." Did she say she's a paper boy? Did she actually say
down
boy?
Paper boy. I think
I did too. And I'm not sure if it should have been, paper, gender non-specific child figure.
I think she said boy. We both wrote it down.
Maybe it's possible. But then she does say, "I'm working hard for the money."
She worked hard for the money, money, money.
Those are the exact lyrics that Donna Summer wrote and sang.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of deader than disco, so Kelly says, basically, because of her street smarts, or her being out and about as a paperboy girl person, that Pete's Deli, this business a few blocks over, has been getting all of Edna's Edibles customers.
She said Pete's Deli. I thought she said Pete Stelly. Like Stelly was his last name.
No, he has a last name.
Pete Stelly is moving in on our turf.
I'm Pete Stelly. I got a spicy meatball.
Yeah.
No, Pete's Deli. And he does have a last name. They do use it later, and I don't even know what it is.
Stelly.
It's Stelly.
It's Pete Stelly's Deli.
Why isn't it Stelly's Deli then? Why is it
Pete Stelly's Deli?
And his wife's name is Stella. So we have Stella Stelly's Deli.
Stella Stelly.
So how would you rate Stella Stelly's Deli? Stellar. Really. So we do have an interesting little reference here. After Joe says, I need to go over and break his knees, Joe goes right for the Bronx Mafia thing, the tough girl thing. And what Kelly tells us is that Pete is famously known for copying local businesses and then underselling them. And she says, when the Armenian food store opened here, Pete started selling falafel on a stick. But here's the interesting thing is that when they first got the shop, when we first saw this set as a rundown, I'm going to open up a shop here. This is the place. It had been an Armenian deli. The sign was still there, and they even said so. So this absolutely, that is canon, and this episode supports it. And the show frequently does not have any consistency or integrity from episode to episode. So I was delighted that they did that.
Well, good.
Yes. So did you notice when Kelly ran out with the newspapers, she started screaming, extra, extra.
She got to sell. She got to make that money. She works hard for the money. She works hard for the money.
Yes. But, I mean, extra, read all. It's like, what is this? We're the newsies, and we got to sell the papes.
Well, okay, actually, this is another question I had. Where are they?
They're in Peekskill, New York.
Okay, so they are in New York.
You don't publish an extra edition of the daily paper in Peekskill, New York, unless Kennedy has been shot or victory has been declared over Europe. You know what I mean? It's like, why would...
Yeah. No, you definitely don't.
It's a common trope. Extra, read all about it. But it literally is an extra edition, meaning they printed the evening papers and some big shit went down that they had to put out.
To print another one.
It couldn't wait till the morning edition or the next days. It was that big a deal. So
thank you for that tidbit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what that extra is literally.
I mean, it makes total sense. Yeah,
an extra edition. In 1983, a paper boy / girl / gender fluid young entity would have just simply been the person who brings it to your house.
Right, sets it on the doorstep.
And then once a week knocks on the door and says, collecting.
Yeah.
And you give them your money, your $1.25 or whatever.
Right. There weren't paper children running around the streets of this small town.
No, hawking. No.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, it was such a weird, bizarre thing. Yeah. So Mrs. Garrett decides it's time to get tough. It's time to get her business back. And what is she going to use as her weapon of mass destruction, Cole?
Some dynamic new taste thrill. Wisconsin cheese puffs.
What? Has she gone crazy?
I don't know. I was just floored when I heard her say that.
I mean, and she is from Wisconsin. That is also canon.
Okay,
and,
hold on. I think I have a different definition of gourmet food.
Okay.
I don't think I would ever include a cheese puff under the category of gourmet food.
We have discussed this before, how there have been episodes where, and actually Pete does refer to this, there was an episode where it was all bratwurst centered over her making bratwurst and having too many orders and not having the meat. And it was like, I was like, why is a gourmet food store where their core business is bakery items plus catering? And so it's like, why are you grinding your own meat into its own? It's like, wouldn't that be a butcher that would do that or something?
Yeah.
So, so Gourmet Food Store just basically allows them to do and make whatever they need to make for whatever episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including
there's an episode,
cheese puffs, which are in no way gourmet.
No. And there's an episode where they made a guy a sandwich like it was a fucking Subway. And it was like, okay, I guess we do sandwiches here now. Okay.
Nice. Prepared foods.
Yeah, why not? So when Mrs. Garrett leaves excitedly about her cheese puffs, of course, the girls, that isn't good enough. The girls got to hatch a plan of their own because this is a sitcom.
Yeah.
So Tootie suggests garbology.
Great idea.
The way people go through the trash of celebrities to learn about their personal lives, she's like, we could do the same thing with him. And it's like, no. And Blair's spin on it is, and Natalie's not here because Natalie's in the other room on the computer, having a slightly too personal relationship with the computer.
Yeah.
She gives it a name and everything. What does she call it? She calls it Dirk.
Dirk.
Okay.
She named her computer because her computer teacher told her to develop a personal relationship with the machine. So this is instruction from a professor.
Yeah, and internet porn was still a long ways away, so we know it wasn't a sexual thing.
Yeah, you can't get much fidelity in that orange CRT monitor. Little X's. In the shape of a human being.
Exactly. It was like it's like two stick figures kind of It's like, okay, I'm going to rub it out to that. All right, take what you get. So Pete's Deli, we go to and so with Natalie out of the room, we basically get the points of view, and this is good. This is all good character work where Tootie comes up with this garbage thing. Joe wants to use violence, and Blair is like, I could flirt with him and he'd be putty in my hands. It's like, yes, yes, and yes. I believe all of those. No one is stepping out of character. So then we go over to Pete's Deli.
Pete's Deli's Deli.
Pete's Stelly's Deli. And there's a lot of people there. The joint is jumping.
Yeah, it is.
And
so many people.
And Blair goes there alone. And while she is there, we meet two people, two actors, two veteran actors. The character of Pete is played by an actor named William Wyndham, and I won't even go into his credits. He first started working in 1949.
Wow.
In television. So he's like literally in the dawn of television.
Yeah.
And he worked well into his 80s, and he passed away at the age of 88 in 2012.
Wow.
And if you look at his IMDb page, I will not read it, I promise. He has 254 credits.
Good for him.
And then, well, while we're talking like this, we have a customer lady. She doesn't even have a name, but the actress playing her is Nancy Lenahan, still working today, has 151 acting credits.
Good for her.
So she is still doing it, still cranking out the work, and good on her. And honestly, both of them are very good in the show. I really enjoy both of their performances. I wonder whose choice it was. I guess it is in the writing.
Yes.
To make him Southern, like full on. He was one cowboy hat and a piece of straw hanging out of his mouth away from being a stereotype.
And I think he was even closer than that.
Yeah.
I think he was just the stereotype.
But we have this weird thing because he's in overalls. He's got a a plaid shirt on. He's got a corncob pipe in the front pocket of his overalls. Never touches it. Never uses it as a prop, but it is there. Somebody made the choice artistically to put a corncob pipe into his overalls.
Oh, wow.
I think, to me, what it seems is that I think the choice was there because it's like, how about because he is a shyster, let's make him really charming. And I do have to say, as a Yankee, I was born and raised in Massachusetts, that a person with a Southern accent was a little exotic. It was kind of a, ooh, I like to hear you talk.
Wow.
Kind of a thing. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, fine.
So he is all talking to this customer. Now she comes in and she's like, I need more croissants. And she even says, are they as good as Edna's edibles? And he is all touching on her hand and saying, sweetie pie, you are going to find these just as delicious as blah, blah, blah.
It was unbelievable how touchy he was.
Yeah.
Rubbing that woman's hand, kissing it, holding it with both of his hands the whole time they talked. Yeah. It was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah. In 2020, that is beyond like, oh my God. It's like, that's a customer. That's like not even, oof. So then the customer recognizes Blair coming into the shop. She's like, oh, you're from Edna's Edibles. Awkward. And then she slinks on out, but that's important because Pete overhears this. And he says, here's a talk about a northern writer writing for a southern character. You're from Edna's Edibles. Well, I'll be a busted banjo string.
Oh, no.
Wow. So in the talk about Blair saying, so you've kind of been doing our thing here. And he's like, well, he says, you've been selling bratwurst, and that's kind of my thing as a deli. And it's like, I want to say, no, neither of you is a butcher. Fuck off. But it's kind of the semantics of what is a gourmet food store and what is their lane that they're expected to stay in that doesn't come into the lane of being a deli. Yeah. Not explored fully, I don't believe.
No.
And so oddly, Blair starts negotiating with him.
Immediately.
Like, well, how about we don't do bratwurst and you don't do croissants? Well, how about we cater the nice weddings and you can do the picnics and stuff? Why, we happen to be catering this amazing Russell wedding and Mrs. Garrett's going to pull out all the stops with these awesome new cheese puffs that she's making. Hope that expositionally revealing that to you doesn't somehow come back to haunt us.
Oh, could it?
Maybe. I don't know, Cole. It's really getting tense now. The momentum of intensity and drama is really starting to build at this point. And basically, he charms his way. And he charms Blair. Like, for Blair saying, I'm going to have him wrapped around finger. He's the one that says, why, what happened? You've got yourself a deal there, little lady. And she leaves. No sooner does she leave, he picks up the phone and calls Mr. Russell about this wedding. Dum, dum, dum. So then next scene, we come back to Edna's Edibles. Edna is on the phone, and she is mad because the Russells have just canceled the wedding. And they basically have told her, we're going with Pete Stelly's Deli catering.
Pete Stelly's Deli.
And so she is fuming mad. It is revealed, basically, that Blair is the one who spilled the beans. That's how he found out. So Blair thinks they should spy on him to see if they can figure out what else he's doing. And Mrs. Garrett says, I'm going to get to those cheese puffs right now.
Yeah, her response was, oh, I just need to hurry up and we've lost our biggest catering deal, which is later revealed was going to carry them for the entire month. And her response is, I better get on those cheese puffs.
Damn fucking right she does. Yes, she does. Yes. So then Tootie enters, looking disheveled, and Joe is like, what is that smell? It's terrible. Well, Tootie was dumpster diving and going through the garbage. So it's funny how the girls just sort of were like, they talked about different ideas of what they could do, and then they just went off and did their own thing. So Blair went in to charm him. Tootie went to the dumpster. Good thing Joe didn't go to break his legs, is all I can say.
Well, that would have made an exciting show.
It would have. It would have been. Natalie then comes in and is like, guys, come in here. I got something to show you. They sit down at the computer, and she says, look at this. And they're like, what? What are we looking at? What is this weird machine with a typewriter and a television screen? And she says, Dirk and I, Dirk being the name of the computer, Dirk and I broke through, and here is Pete's data on his computer. And they're like, what are you talking about? She says, we broke through to his computer. They didn't say break in. They didn't say hacked. But she said, I found his books, his orders, and his recipes. And I remember seeing this as a kid, Cole, and being like, what is happening right now?
How is it possible? Mind-blowing.
It isn't possible. It is literally impossible. It is like you needed to have the internet back in the day. The closest thing to a quote-unquote internet was bulletin board systems or like mainframe mail systems. Mm-hmm. The writers here clearly read something about hacking and computers talking to other computers, but it would have behooved them at the beginning to say, you're even paying extra for that modem.
Right, yeah. There is, I did notice, I actually think it was it wasn't rotary. There was a phone handset and there was a phone sitting next to the computer. But I do think it would have been the time in the age of the internet where they would have had to take the handset off the base and put it on that other thing.
There'd be a cradle. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Which that was not happening.
This is so completely wrong. You and I cannot justify or talk about it.
You don't think they were connected to any sort of internet? The computer was just sitting autonomously on the desk, and somehow they accessed Pete's computer.
Magic. Yes.
Magic. Okay.
Magic.
It was Wi-Fi before there was Wi-Fi.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was like citywide.
Yeah. Even if it was, okay, these are the rewrites I'm going to be sending back in my time machine. Yeah. Number one would be, and even that modem. And then Natalie would have said, well, Mrs. Garrett, the money includes this service that I dial into that stores our data for us.
And Pete would have also been on that service.
Exactly. And then she could have said, so I maybe was playing around and I maybe just for the heck of it looked to see if I could, see if his password was something I could. And he never changed the initial password. I changed ours.
Yeah.
And I hacked in and it's here now. And basically then we would have had a little bit more of a, okay, so I willfully and with malice aforethought hacked in and I now have access to this guy's. What do we do? That would have been a beautiful dilemma. And of course, yeah. And then of course, Joe was the first one. Ha ha, fuck him.
Let me get in there.
She's like, I have no ethical problem whatsoever with it. And the other thing is this is such these are words that somebody heard somebody say when they were sitting near a computer. And Natalie, the prep for this thing that's about to happen is Natalie says, look, here's his croissant recipe. He spelled croissant wrong.
Croissant wrong.
I'll fix it for him.
Very wrong.
Yeah, croissant croissant. Yeah. Just to show what an unrefined hick he is. Mean, evil Southern man. So she goes in and she changes. She says, I'll correct the spelling. She says, you just do this, type. You hit delete, and there you go. So this quote unquote hitting delete as being part of fixing or changing something, that is going to come back in just a few moments. So the act of the show ends with, could we change some of the numbers and fuck with his recipes and his orders? And they're like, yeah, I guess I could. And Tootie's like, isn't that against the law? And Joe is like, no. This is just a weapon that we're using to fight back. And off she goes. Tootie and Natalie are clearly not 100% comfortable, but Joe is going at it full throttle, full steam ahead. And with that, we fade to commercial.
And applause.
Yes. So while we're on the commercial break, Cole, this is where I like to take a moment and get to know my guests.
Hello.
And talk a little bit about you. Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
You and I got to work together on a reading of a musical, like a workshop reading of a musical a few years back. So that was when our paths first actually professionally crossed. But I had seen you in a production at Mad Cow of James Joyce's The Dead, and you were so good in that.
Oh, thank you.
And then next thing I know, I'm like, I'm in a reading I'm in a workshop of a musical, and he's in it too. Cool.
That was a fun time. Our 2-day musical reading.
Yeah, it was a very, very quick process, but it was super fun. And then after that, I discovered your podcast, the Entrepreneur Podcast. And so you are in my ears, in my brain on a weekly basis. But let's have just a quick, brief travelogue through your life. Cole NeSmith, tell me, where were you born?
I was born in Orlando, Florida.
What?
Yeah.
No.
I was.
Nobody was born in Orlando. People move here, Cole.
This guy.
No way.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And have you, I look on your social media. You are certainly a well-traveled man. You have been many, many places. You didn't just stay here in town.
No, I actually just counted because I was setting some goals for the next decade.
Uh-huh.
And in the next decade, I want to make it to my 40th country. I've been to 20. Like 22, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love traveling. It's definitely something that I've invested my life in. After high school, I toured around the country with a band. And so that was a wonderful experience. And played music full-time for several years, lived in Nashville for just a short period of time, lived in Atlanta for a little bit. But all of my musician friends were here. All of my creative friends were here. So I came back.
Mm-hmm. It's a great arts community. The community here is amazing, and you have greatly contributed to that pot, which we'll talk about in a second. But so you went to school locally. You went to high school. Where did you study? Did you go to college? Did you?
Yeah, I went to UCF, and I studied music and creative writing, and got a minor in organizational communication.
Oh. Well, those are all things that have served you quite well.
It was just one of those things where I was like, what am I going to do here? And then UCF had a liberal studies degree, and so I just kind of built my own program around the things that I cared about.
Yeah.
It was really wonderful.
Yes. Cool. Now, tell me, what do you, because you are a musician, you are a singer-songwriter, you are an actor, what do you primarily consider yourself to be?
I create meaningful experiences that bring people together.
Love it. Beautiful. You are an artist, Cole NeSmith.
Sometimes that's on the internet, sometimes that's in real life, sometimes that's through music, sometimes that's by facilitating performances of other people.
Mm-hmm. And your main thing that you do, like for your job, is this thing that you started from the ground up, from nothing, the Creative City Project.
Yeah.
And this annual event called Immerse. And give me your elevator pitch so people who don't know about this event will know about it now.
Yeah, Immerse is it's a performing and interactive arts event over 10 city blocks in downtown Orlando. It happens the third weekend of every October. And this year we'll host, hopefully, 1,000 artists for about an audience of 100,000 people.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And this was just an idea you had, I know from listening to your podcast, you were in another country where you saw there was such an emphasis on interactive and street art, and you said, we need something like that. Where did that inspiration hit you?
My favorite country in the world, Spain. And every year they have a festival in Valencia called Las Fallas, where they build these massive statues all over the city and set them all on fire the last day of the festival. And it is epic.
Wow.
Yeah. I came back and I said, I'm going to call my friends and ask them to come play the guitar on the street corner. That's what I did. And then over the next
100,000 people showed up.
and no one showed up intentionally for any of that. Okay. A lot of people stumbled onto it.
Oh yeah.
But over the next 2 years, it really did develop into something that was strategic, and we started getting sound and lights and permits and permission, and then it became a thing over the course of the next 2 years.
And where can people find more information about the Creative City Project?
CreativeCityProject.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Creative City Project, as well as Immerse Fest on Instagram.
And then lastly, you, a fellow podcaster, have the wonderful Entrepreneur Podcast. Now, what made you do that on top of all this other stuff?
Well, as part of the Creative City Project, one of the things that we want to do is help cultivate a thriving arts community in Central Florida. But our podcast audience has really grown beyond that, and so it's really wonderful opportunity to connect with artists from all over the world. And I kind of have gone through the struggle and continue to go through the struggle of what it means to be a person working full-time in creative life. And so the Artrepreneur podcast is designed to help artists make creativity their career. And every week we talk about practical things that make that happen, whether it's developing an artistic discipline or helping artists understand how to market what they do and how they do it. And then we get to interview some fun people who are actually in the process of or are currently making creativity their career.
I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Oh,
even if people aren't aspiring to make creativity their career, just people who want to get more in touch with their creativity and may not even know really how to start.
Yeah. Or anybody with a dream or a passion or something that you've wanted to do.
Yeah. Now, it's awesome. And as I've said, it has been very inspirational to me in the beginning and maintenance of this podcast. So having you on is an honor. And I thank you, for the podcast and for being on the show.
Yeah. All that means so much. Thank you.
Yeah. But Cole, enough about you.
Okay, great. Let's get back to the show.
We have to get back to this quandary, this conundrum about what is going to happen with Joe jumping off of the ethics cliff, basically.
The tension is thick.
Jesus. So we come back pretty much shortly after where we left off, with the girls still around the computer. And the girls, I mean, Joe, Tootie, Natalie. We do not know where Blair or Mrs. Garrett are at this time. I do have to point out there was a little file box for 5 1/4-inch floppy disks. Did you see that?
No. I caught the telephone, but I did not see the disc box.
So I will point out also, Tootie, still there, same clothes. She smelled like garbage to the point where everyone who saw her was like, Jesus,
for
fuck,
the rest
what is
of
that?
the episode. Why couldn't she change clothes?
Or shower, or both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was deeply, deeply disturbing. So while Joe is ticking away at the computer, Mrs. Garrett bursts in the room, "Stop what you're doing!" And the girls are all like, "Shit!" And Joe turns off the computer. She hits a button and kind of huddles over it. Mrs. Garrett wants them to test out the cheese puffs. Of course. And so they do. It's all fine and dandy. But when Mrs. Garrett leaves, Joe, it's like, okay, how do you turn this thing back on? And Natalie's like, well, you do this. And, well, where is it? It's not there anymore. Joe, did you hit delete? Everything on Phil Stelly's Deli's disc has disappeared and you have erased it.
It's a tragedy, really.
It is.
Here's what I know. I grew up in a house with an Apple IIe, and the only way you had data was that it was on a disk. And so even this idea of them being able to access and change his data as if it was stored on the cloud or something is completely ridiculous.
It is reconculous. It is it does not work. And yeah, here's the thing. And Tootie does mention, she says, I read in Newsweek about kids who got into trouble for doing this thing. Cole, the article in Newsweek was September 5th, 1983.
It's real.
This show was taped on November 8th, 1983.
It's a real article. Did you read it?
No, fuck no. I don't read if I don't have to. But it was one of those, again, 83, this was so early on, but the movie War Games did put a lot of fear into a lot of people, and including like President Reagan, even, I think it was the reason some legislation was brought up and passed, because they're like, wait a minute, could that really happen? And
kind of the answer was kind of, maybe.
Yeah, kind of ish.
Yeah.
This episode was ripped from the headlines, Cole.
It's facts of life, just totally relevant content
of their time and relevant. And that's a win right there for the writers. For
good for them.
Not coming up with this 2 years down the road when everyone already was like, whatever, this is no big deal.
You want another fact of life?
What's another fact of life?
Did you know that every butterfly can only lay its eggs on one particular plant.
Really?
The caterpillar of the monarch butterfly can only eat milkweed leaves. The caterpillar of the black eastern swallowtail can only eat fennel or parsley.
So each species of butterfly
is paired
has
with
its
a plant.
own unique plant that it will only eat.
Can you believe that you've lived your entire life not knowing that?
I'm a better man for having known you, Cole.
Yeah. This
am.
is one of the messages that I proselytize on a regular basis.
So we now move into the shop. Back to Mrs. Garrett's shop, and the joint is jumping. It's busy. It is so busy that our customer lady from the other place is back.
Thank goodness.
What has she eaten and is singing the praises of, Cole?
The cheese puffs.
Yes, the cheese puffs. And we use our customer lady to even greater effect by she seems to have somehow been invited to this Russell wedding and is friendly enough with Mrs. Garrett to tell her, oh, the Russell wedding food tasted like dog shit.
Disaster.
It was a failure. The food was awful. She's like, it was like he was making up the recipe as he went along.
Was he? Ooh, what could have happened?
So Mrs. Garrett is just thrilled because business is good, and she hears that Stelly's Deli may be biting the big one soon. So then in comes Officer, oh God, how did she pronounce it? Ziakis?
I don't even try. I didn't write it down.
It's a weird name for Officer.
How often does he appear?
This is his second of 3 appearances.
Okay, because he was just on the last episode. I didn't know if he came in at like every episode.
No. Did you recognize him, Cole?
No.
That is Larry Wilmore from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Well, look at him. Good for him.
Often billed as the senior black correspondent. That was usually his bit that he would do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's kind of a big deal. And he has a podcast also, Larry Wilmore, Black on the Air.
Huh.
And so, yeah, he's still a writer, producer, TV show creator, and political satirist.
Nice.
And yeah, who knew? I did not recognize him. But he comes in with a summons.
And he reveals a lot about old Southern man Pete's knowledge of hacking. He comes in and he says, Pete gave us a call because he knew that you hacked into his computer and deleted all of his data.
Yeah.
Pete is impressive.
He is. He should be Matthew Broderick in War Games. Yeah, it is so bizarre how everybody in this episode is now an expert on computers and how they work. And it's like, yeah, I traced the IP address to your web browser and found that it was coming from your house.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyhow, Mrs. Garrett is all confused, and so he's sweet. He's a fun character. I wouldn't have minded if he was on the show more as the cop. This is his beat, and he's friendly and likes popping in for free food. So very quickly, thankfully, the girls fess up, and Mrs. Garrett is like, "You did what?" And it's like, it was kind of an accident, and Joe was like, "But he had it coming."
And I like the phrase that they use: "We wiped out his program."
That's
we wiped out his program.
And then you made a Google. It's like, what is that?
We wiped out his program.
Yeah, I almost wish she had said, I don't even know what that means, but it sounds awful. But that's my bad Mrs. Garrett.
Oh, it sounds just like her.
If you are ever so inspired and want to do a bad Mrs. Garrett, I invite all my guests at any point, drop it in there. Just throw it out there. So she says, we're going over right now, Joe, you and I, and we're going to beg him to drop the charges. And Joe tries to push back, and in a rare moment, Mrs. Garrett fucking lays down the law and screams at her. I'm not going to do it. She screams, I am in charge here. Get your coat. March. And Joe cannot fight it. Joe's
a moment of authority.
Then we go back to Pete's, and they go in. She introduces herself as Edna from Edna's Edibles, and he's like, "Oh, no, you will talk to my attorney. Deal with him, not with me." And she says it was an accident. The girls didn't know what they were doing. She says, I promise you, all that stuff, it is stopped, is what she says.
It is stopped.
And he says, then why don't you call off Mata Hari over here? And you look over and see a woman in a black wig and sunglasses and a trench coat. And it's Blair trying to infiltrate and spy on him. And it is hilariously funny. It is a costuming win for me.
It is a costuming win for sure.
Because of the idea of, okay, how would an incompetent spy dress in a way that they think is inconspicuous, that is beyond conspicuous?
Just like
perfect.
That. Yep.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So then, as the conversation continues that he is not going to let her off the hook, in come Tootie and Natalie. Now both of them are disheveled, dirty, and, according to the other cast members, smelling like a dumpster.
A dumpster.
And what have they found in the dumpster, Cole?
Printed out recipes from Edna's Edibles.
What? Yes. Turns out he had been doing the same impossible thing that they did for weeks and had been breaking into their computer and stealing the recipes. Wow.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.
But we do know about Pete that he is an expert computer hacker. So we're not surprised.
Yeah. As most backwoods talking men wearing overalls are, it's like, yeah.
Let me smoke my corncob pipe and go on the internet.
Well, I snuck up on your roof and fished a Cat5 cable down near your computer terminal. I put it in the Ethernet port. It was only a 501k baud, but it was sufficient enough for me to acquire the data. None of that was said.
I don't think the term Ethernet cable existed in 1983.
No, the Ethernet did not exist.
No.
And
now we get to the worst part of the episode. When he cries out, "The South will rise again." Wow.
Yeah.
And no one in the store bats an eye when he shouts that.
No. And it's like, I'm going to be introducing some Tennessee-style cheese puffs. And, okay.
It was so unbearable to watch. Although no one in the moment had a negative reaction.
Yeah.
Did not age well.
So at this point, it's like, oh, is he supposed to be from Tennessee? Is that what this accent is supposed to have been? This foghorn, leghorn dialect that sounds more like, welcome to Tara, Miss Scarlett. Let's head on up to Georgia now.
Yeah. It's not a very Tennessean accent.
Yeah. So the episode basically ends with them saying, okay, well, we won't press charges if you don't press charges. Mm-hmm. And he does shake her hand and say, fair solution, that's right. But he does say, I'm still planning to introduce the cheese puffs. And then they get into this weird sparring match where she is just laughing at him and getting him more angry. She's poking the bear in the cage. And it's fun and it's lovely to see Mrs. Garrett with the upper hand. But at the same time, you're like, girl, get out while the getting's good.
Mm-hmm.
Don't piss him off. You just came to an agreement.
Well, he then also flips teams. Civil War teams.
How so?
Well, so he has this horrible line about the South rising again.
Yeah.
But then when they're in the argument, he says, I'm going to rip through you like Sherman ripped through Georgia.
You're right.
Which is a Union army coming through Georgia and retaking Savannah.
Defeating the Confederate.
Yeah.
Wow. I totally missed that. But you're right. Totally. Huh. So, again, did these writers not do research or something?
Did they not have the internet? Clearly they did. Clearly they had the internet. That's what this whole episode is about. But no one was putting any data on it yet. Just Pete's recipes and Mrs. G's books. That's all that was on the internet at the time. And so there was no Wikipedia. There were no historical articles, no journals. They had no information.
They had nothing there. The couple of good barbs Mrs. Garrett gets is, and in addition to Sherman ripping through Georgia, I take that as a threat. Just saying, threatening a woman. Mm-hmm. And then he says, I'm going to reduce you to a grease spot. And she says, oh, talking about your cooking again?
She really got him there.
And then he says, I will bury you. And she says, right next to your food. And she's just loving it. And then they just freeze frame, roll credits. We're done. They're trading barbs. And I'm like, I would have loved for Joe to say, Mrs. Garrett, shut up and let's go. Get out. Don't piss him off. Yes, we're at a stalemate, but don't poke the bear in the cage, especially when he doesn't know what side of the Civil War he's fighting on.
Yes.
He's not well balanced,
No,
clearly.
He's definitely not.
As I said before, I like to do rewrites and send them back in my time machine to the writers. The fact that they settle amicably, and then he still comes back with, I'm still making your cheese puffs, bitch.
Oh.
That's where Mrs. Garrett Joe should have, said, well, this isn't over yet, type. And Mrs. Garrett say, no, it's okay. You have no idea what I still have in my recipe box. Now, that sounds dirty. I don't like that. But some type of an allusion to, you got some of my recipes, but fucker, you think that's all I got?
There's way more where that came from.
Yeah, you need to steal my shit to have anything to offer your customers. Bring it. Go right ahead. Steal from somebody else, but you're not going to take my customers away again.
No.
And that would have been a nice little declarative final button to Mrs. Garrett's where I stand in the situation now.
It would have given us a nice button, yes.
Yeah, that's true. So, Cole, we're at the end of the episode.
Wow.
So before I send you on your way, the last thing I like to ask my guests is name a commercial. Name a random commercial that was one that you liked or that you remember, something from your childhood. Just throw out a classic commercial.
The first thing that's coming to mind that's current.
Do it.
800-588-2300 Empire. Has anybody brought that one up?
Call now. No one has, no. And that is, honestly, a classic commercial because there are probably people in their 20s who have never lived in a world without that theme song in it.
Sure. I just sang that poorly because I was just kind of doing it out of thin air, but that walk down at the beginning of that song is actually quite chromatic. 800-588. It's an impressive jingle.
800-588-2300 Empire.
Yeah. Today.
Oh no. Today, that's it.
Today.
So, my darling, we are at the end of the show. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to do this.
Thank you.
I'm really, really glad we had this chance to connect and, if not in person, digitally hang out. This was really fun.
It's been wonderful. Thank you.
So to you, my dear, I say thank you, smooches, and goodbye.
Bye.
And there you have it. That was Cole NeSmith. I am so glad he agreed to do the show. And like I said, he legitimately has been an inspiration to me and been very helpful in getting this podcast launched and off the ground. So I thank him for his inspiration as well as for being a guest on the show. Next week, I'm going to be watching Season 5, Episode 11, called The Second Time Around. You can watch the episode for free at dailymotion.com. I will post the link in the show notes, and you can also find it on this episode's webpage. That is all for now. Thank you so much, guys, for listening this week as every week. And remember, the facts of life are all about you. Let's Face the Facts was produced, written, hosted, and edited by me, David Almeida. My theme song was beautifully arranged and recorded by Ned Wilkinson. Our website is facethefactspod.com. You have to drop the lets. And that's where you can find extra pictures, video, and audio extras from the digital cutting room floor. Follow the show on social media. We're everywhere under the handle Face the Facts Pod. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/FaceTheFactsPod. And don't forget, go to your favorite podcatchers and subscribe, rate, and review. Tune in again next week for another thrilling episode of Let's Face the Facts.